Hello, this is the entire front clip off a 1984 to 1985 EXP Turbo. Getting this off was a little bit more challenging than I originally planned. It took a while. Wasn't anything extremely difficult, but it took a while. So we'll get into it. So this is how to remove the entire front clip assembly and remove the chin spoiler. If you're restoring an EXP Turbo, this will be useful news for you. If you're trying to retrofit the turbo chin spoiler onto an existing EXP or Escort, this will also be towards your benefit. So this is what it looks like when you take everything off, the clip at least. Usually with this plastic rubberish air dam, it scoops up all of the air from the lower chin spoiler, routes it directly past the two pusher fans, because it's a turbo, into the aluminum radiator. Well, you obviously have to get all of the bolts that hold the fenders on, the quarter panels. So it's a bunch on the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on both sides. Sometimes one side has more than the others, just so you know. Then you have a bolt here that you can access right from here, but only if your door is open can you get to that one. And then there's also a bolt down below that goes into, yep, you can see that there, that clip right there, that guy. The bolt goes into there. And then you have two right-angled brackets. You have one here and one on the other side. You can remove those one of two ways. You can remove the screws that hold the bracket onto the cone, or you can remove the bolts that hold the bracket onto the body, and that's what I did. It's a lot easier to get at the bolts from inside the engine bay on the turbo than it was to get at the bolts in front of the radiator again on the turbo, because with the turbo you have these fans here, so it's really hard to get at the bolts, the two bolts that hold these up. That's the easiest way to do it on the non-turbo cars. With the turbo cars, like I said, these fans being here, it's hard to get anything useful in there with the nose cone on, because it brings your clearance up to here. So just undo the two bolts from the back side. There's plenty of room here. You can see after you remove the intake and the battery, and then same over there, a lot of clearance, and you don't even have to remove anything over here to get to them. And remember, I had said that there are two little bolts on the bottom here. They'll be tricky to find at first unless you know this. These are the plastic covers that hold them on. So there's two of them. This is the one for this side, I think. Maybe I got the other way around. Yeah, I think so. So they go up like this from the bottom there, outside the fender. So the order is fender, bolt. These guys go over the bolt, over the fender, and then you run two screws into these, and they're just normal Phillips screws. And then the bolt that's hiding underneath these, I'll show you on the fender here, it goes right through that hole. And all the bolts are the same. They're all the same fender bolts. Just these guys that are all set with washers pressed into them, and they all have 8mm heads on them. All the screws are number 2 Phillips. Just make sure you clean those out first, because they like to rust, and when they do, the grooves in the head clog up with rust, and then when you try to remove them, they just snap off. So that's something to take note of. Next, so that was all the bolts to get the nose cone and fenders off, what you normally have to do on an EXP. Oh, I'd also missed these guys. You have a couple bolts that go in, where'd it go? There we are. You have a couple bolts that go into there. You have one on each side, and they they just go into the fenders here. And then that's the last bolt, I promise, for the fenders and the nose cone. Next, you have to do a few screws that hold the plastic fender liners on. Each of the screws goes into these 3 clips. There's only 3 on each side, 1 on each of the ends, 1 in the middle. And they blow, you saw there, they both, all 3 screw up into the hole and then through the hole up into the clip. Same over here. With the turbos, your nose cone, your chin spoiler bolts up right about here. So you can still get to that bolt to remove the entire front clip. You don't need to remove those 3 screws to remove your front clip. That actually, it doesn't aid at all in your removal of this. It actually just makes things harder. I think that's everything on the nose cone. Hopefully I mentioned this. There's 2 bolts on of each of those, and they go right into here. Very easily removable. I suggest removing, well, if you kept these brackets, keep these brackets on the cone, because then when you lay it down flat, it can sit on all of these points without any weird warping or anything once you have it on its back for storage. Next, we get into the chin spoiler itself. That's what held up the thing, or at least it did for me, because it's riveted on to the nose cone, or at least mine is. Mine's riveted on in just 2 places. There and there. Mine has a license plate mount, and it is not riveted to the nose cone, to the chin spoiler in any place. However, it is riveted to the nose cone. But to get the chin spoiler off, you have to fight it off, or at least I did. You have to fight off some bolts and all these little mounting holes on the top ledge of the chin spoiler, but it's underneath the cone, so they're really hard to get up into. But once you get those off, you can do the 1, 2, 3 screws there, and then there's just 1 screw on each side of the nose cone that hold it onto the quarter panels, and then it just drops to the floor. And remember, I'd said that you have to get these couple bolts out through the top of the ridge. Here's where they had mounted them. In '84, or at least for the turbos, they changed the front bumper a little bit. They welded in some brackets here so that you can only change out the front markers by bringing it forward, I think. I might be wrong, but it sure looks like that's the only way to do it. Remember on the 82 front markers I made a video on, you can just pull them out the back after undoing 2 bolts and then pulling up the wires. But it sure seems like these are supposed to come out front because they had riveted a bracket in there. Or maybe it's just bolted in. Yeah, that's a rivet. So I don't know what the procedure is for those. We'll find out soon. Because if you're doing a turbo, you should really have this guy, because it has a special ledge that is bolted onto there that helps support the chin spoiler, keeps it from falling off. That's kind of crucial. And it's really hard to access. Remember, I had said earlier that it's hard getting to these bolts that hold on the top ledge of the nose cone. It's because you can't physically get to them. The nose cone is shaped like this. Comes in close up against the bumper, comes in close down here, goes past, so you can't physically get to any of these bolts. So the only way to get to the bracket, you can actually remove the bracket by, hopefully you can see that there, maybe you can. There we go. By accessing the lower section here, you have to get on your back, get underneath the car, reach your hand up behind the the chin spoiler and undo every single one of those bolts. But you can tell, luckily they are part of the casting, so there's no nut on the backside, but they go in at a pretty steep angle, so maybe you can see that, maybe not. But the first bolt I had tried to do is started rounding the sucker over. Because of the shape of the bumper, you can't fit a wrench in there very well at the correct angle, so you have to go slightly off angle to these things, and like I said, you just start rounding nuts off, which is no good. So if you are able to take them off, never sees, never sees, never sees, never sees, and never have a problem ever again. I don't know if the 82 and 83, I don't think the 82 and 83 bumpers are like this one. I don't think they have this inch extension that allows you to put on this support. Pretty sure they don't have that at all. As far as 84s and 85s go, I don't know. I know nothing. This is my only 84 and it's a turbo, so they might all be cast with that lower ledge for you to mount this, or they might not. Or they might even have this on there anyways, even though you don't have a chin spoiler. I wouldn't know. So now you've done all of that. You're ready to pull that off, as long as you remembered to disconnect your little corner turn signals and your headlights. Yeah, they're easy. The headlight one you just pull out from the backside, or once you scoot the nose cone forward, you can get a grip on it here and give a quick yank if you, for whatever reason, can't get your hand through the back. These guys, turn it 45 or 90 degrees left, pull out. Pretty easy, bayonet style stuff. And now you have it on the ground. And I showed you how to get the nose cone off. So that's pretty much all there is to it. I'll have a video out on how to do the non-turbo nose cone, first gens that is. It's pretty similar, but you don't have those lower chin spoiler to mess with. Otherwise they're completely the same. So we'll leave it at that for now. And keep an eye out. I'll have more videos on this turbo project coming up soon. So stay tuned.